Hello, everyone, and welcome to Little Free Library Unbound. My name is Lexi Neely. I'm the programs coordinator at Little Free Library. And thank you for joining us for our fourth episode, which will be Little Free Library Stewardship 101. First, I'd just like to acknowledge that this has been a really difficult week for many of us. I live in St. Paul. The Little Free Library organization is based in a suburb of the Twin Cities, and it has been an exceptionally difficult week. So I just want to share that we stand with our BIPOC stewards and supporters. We're thinking of you, and we hope that we continue to do the work that we're doing here to increase equity and book access to open hearts and minds. And we're here with you, and we're so appreciative of everything that you do for us as stewards. We really are better together. So thank you again for being here with us tonight. We're thinking of you, and we're holding you close in our hearts. I'd like to start out with a quick poll to see who's here with us tonight, since this is a really informative session. For prospective stewards, we might have a little different mix of people we have here with us today. So if you would let us know which describes you best, you can choose multiple. Are you a Little Free Library steward? You have a library of your own? Are you a Little Free Library user or patron? Or are you just a supporter here to check out what we have going on? We're hoping this session will be really informative for not only existing stewards, but folks who are new to the organization or interested in starting a Little Free Library of their own. There should be a little bit of something for everyone. And we got so many great questions in the registrations for this that we're excited to offer this on an ongoing basis so we can answer lots of different questions we get, because the experience of stewardship is such a myriad and takes so many different shapes that it can be really exciting to see the ways it works out for different people in different communities. Looks like we're pretty close to everybody sharing how they identify here. So I'm going to share that with you. Looks like we have a lot of Little Free Library stewards, so folks who are interested in hearing about how other people are doing it. And I hope that we'll see new stewards coming to join us too after today. Shelby is my colleague. She's our programs director here at Little Free Library, and she's sharing some informative links and information about how best to view our webinar tonight in the chat. If you have any questions about the tech portion of this, you can privately message Shelby, and she'll be answering as many questions as she can in the chat. We'd like to also invite our stewards in the chat who are joining today to answer questions that you see. If you have advice to offer, we'd love to hear from everyone. Obviously, we couldn't have everyone as a panelist today, but we know that there's a wealth of information and advice out there, and we'd love for you to share it if you see any questions that you can answer in the chat. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our wonderful Little Free Library board chair, Anita Marina, and she's going to take us into this episode today.
All right, hold on, I'm just getting in there. Yep. Can you all see me yet? Hold on. There you go. All right, hi everybody. This is Anita Marina, and I am, as Lexi said, the Little Free Library board chair, and I am so honored to meet everyone, to talk to these stewards, but also know that we are in the company of all of you, both current and potential stewards, because for all of us, this is a labor of love. It means so much to the communities we serve. I want to do one thing and make an acknowledgement, just like Lexi did, because it has been a difficult time. As an Asian American, this has been increasingly difficult. But what I really loved was that Little Free Libraries became, a source of comfort, and that people were sharing books by Asian American authors, and it meant a lot. We became part of a massive campaign to elevate and amplify voices in my community, and I just I just think the world of all of you for doing that. So, excuse me. It meant a lot. I did the same. All the authors were so thrilled that you were sharing their books, and the community really felt hugged in the most amazing way possible. So thank you. I also want to say, and then of course, in all this time of social justice and need and pandemic, you have just always stepped to the front as volunteers. And because of that, April is National Volunteer Month. So, you know, what better time to have our Stewardship 101? You mean so much. So we want to congratulate all of you that it is also National Poetry Month. And if you are a lover of words and poetry as I do, I'm really excited. And one of our amazing steward panelists, Talena and Lachelle Queen, is a poet laureate of New Jersey. We have some details about our stewards from a recent survey. So pardon me while I clean up. So from the slides, we see that the top motivators for starting a Little Free Library include, I wanted to share my love of reading with my community, 76%. I wanted to establish a stronger sense of community, 52%. And 48%, I wanted to improve book access in my community, which is really, really significant for all of you. These statistics are based on a survey of over 2,500 Little Free Library stewards in January 2021. The next slide covers additional information that 69% of stewards are interested in connecting with other stewards in their area. It's like, it is a community. 72% of stewards think they've met more neighbors because of their Little Free Libraries. And that was one of the best things that Todd Bowl, the founder of Little Free Library, said, you know, it's about gathering around. And 86% spend less than 2 hours stewarding their library each week. But I suspect that their community then comes to the front as well in helping. It's a really, really terrific way to do it. Our next slide, because of the responses from stewards, we recently surveyed our steward group and to learn more about why you all started to steward your Little Free Libraries. So you can see the commonalities in this word cloud: community, kids, books, sharing, all really important factors. Fun, of course, don't forget the fun factor. You know, there's lots of really wonderful things that you do. And it is about love of reading, love of your community, love for books, love for authors. So that's really, really exciting. We have a few of the actual responses we got. So Cheyenne O shared, as soon as I saw my first Little Free Library, I knew I had to have one, a whimsical, magical, tiny house full of books and other surprises. How could I resist? They're the closest thing I've found to a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I opened mine to bring our close-knit neighborhood even closer and to provide kids an easy, accessible, and fun way to share and feel a connection to the community. And it's been one of the best things I've ever done. Dan W. told us, I started my library to create community, and it is an outbuilding that makes sense. It gave me the opportunity to be creative with neighbors in my shop. And Elizabeth W. shared, we started our Little Free Library because our daughter said every child needs a book to read and they should never have to worry about the cost of a book. Our daughter Victoria named her Little Free Library the Wishing Well Little Free Library. She tells all the kids that visit it to take a book for each hand, one for now and one for later, which I love. Bring one back if you want to. Sharing books is her passion. And she's only 10, so good on you, Victoria. We have a long, passionate history for you. Our private steward group on Facebook has over 11,000 members. But the group has not just on Facebook, but it's a platform where they exchange ideas, share tips and support, and discuss the different forms that Little Free Library stewardship takes. So this is all very, very exciting for all of us. So thank you to all the stewards who responded. And we're very excited to get going to talk with some of our top stewards, that all of you are, but we have a few that will share their experiences. So one of the things I think Shelby reminds you to have the best viewing experience, select the side-by-side gallery so you can see everybody. So our wonderful stewards today, like all of you, we have Talena and Lachelle Queen, who is in Paterson, New Jersey, a steward since 2017. She has 16 Little Free Libraries and 20 more Little Free Libraries coming soon. And as we said, she is the Poet Laureate for New Jersey. We also have Ryan Glaze. He's a principal at Jenks East Elementary School in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's been a steward since 2018. He has one Little Free Library, but it serves a community that is really near and dear. And you can see the photo with Todd Bull. He actually went out there to Tulsa, Oklahoma to help install this, so very special. And then we also have from Salt Lake City, Utah, Misty Morris, who has been a steward since 2016. She has 4 Little Free Libraries, 1 bookmobile, and 4 more Little Free Libraries coming soon. And you see her fabulous mobile Little Free Library in the photo as well. So welcome to all of you. We have some questions, but I want you to just, feel the love that you all have. So this question is for everybody. Why did you start your Little Free Library? I think for each of you can start your mobile, start your videos.
Can you guys hear us?
There you go. Yep. Hi, Misty.
Hi, I'll start.
Yep.
I actually am a transplant to Utah. I did not grow up here, and it was important to me when I moved here to meet my neighbors because I've never been close. I moved a lot as a kid and didn't really make connections. So it was sort of my way to do that. I met my neighbor and she turned out to be in agreement, and she's fabulous. She's my co-steward. Her name's Laureate. And yeah, we just did it to connect with our neighbors and get information out about neighborhood events, share information, share books, what we could do.
Excellent. And Ryan and Talena, how about you guys? Why did you start your first Little Free Library?
I'll be happy to jump in next. I'm currently just operating with one. It's a very special one. I think we're pretty excited about the things that have happened from it. But honestly, the story in our Little Free Library getting created, I'm a principal of a rather large and very diverse elementary school here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we're in the business of peddling books. It's something that we love to do, and so when we actually first started to see and hear about Little Free Libraries popping up in communities and neighborhood associations around our school and in our community, we were very intrigued about whether or not we would have a place in stewarding one at our school campus. And when I say it's a big school campus, we serve close to 2,000 students. I have 4 libraries on my school campus. So this thought of, do we really need a Little Free Library was a question we wrestled with for a long time. And I don't think in South Tulsa where I'm at, I don't think we would consider ourselves to be a book desert, but what we started to think about as a community school, we think about the needs of the students and families that we serve. And we realize that even though there are books accessible to our community, there are barriers that keep some in our community from accessing those books. And so we thought, you know what, this is a way that we can maybe put books in the hands and the homes of people that might have barriers or might have anxieties or fears about maybe accessing books in some of these more structural or typical environments in our community.
Oh, great. Thank you. And I know that there are going to be more in Tulsa, so we'll look ahead to the future for that. Talena, you are a champion Little Free Library steward with your many Little Free Libraries. Talk to us about what got you started. What made this happen for you, and explain that and how you keep everything going.
Thank you. Okay. So the first time I ever saw a Little Free Library, I was on a walk in Seattle. I lived there, but I'm native to Paterson, New Jersey. So I was out on a walk and I saw it. Now I'm a language arts teacher. I'm a poet. I love words. So I saw this library out in my neighborhood and I was like, oh, you must have that. Soon after that, I moved back home to Paterson and there wasn't any here. And I said, oh, we're getting one. And so I immediately thought about the connection between the students that I taught here in Patterson, and what their language arts skills were like, and how there is a deficit in literary skills, especially in very young children. And so I thought it would be a really good thing for us to make books cool, and that way we can sort of change the trajectory of the language arts skills and literacy skills, those things not being different in our community. And that's the reason why I started it. And the first goal that I had was I want to do 15 in 3 years.
Oh.
But we did 15 in 1 year, right at the 12-month anniversary. And so that was exciting. I didn't have any idea that so many people would be really supportive. And what we do is we have whole events. A lot of the stewards here do this, but didn't know that you all do it too. I thought I was inventing this thing. So we would have s'mores books, right? So we'll be out at the Little Free Library making s'mores, and so people who would not necessarily be attracted to the books were attracted to s'mores, and then we started having conversations around literature. And we do books and breakfast and books and basketball and books and fill in the blank. And so we just kept having events, and different community organizations would join in that and wanted to sponsor the building of a library in their neighborhood. And my favorite thing is when I meet someone and they say to me about a library that I installed, they say, yeah, so my friend has one and I want one too. And I thought, oh, where's your friends, right? But it's that kind of great ownership that community members have that help to keep it going. And that's the reason why we're able to make so many, just selling it. It's like a campaigning for office.
No, that's exactly what we love. And then the community does take ownership. Our next question is for Ryan and Talena. What has surprised you about being a steward?
Ryan, you wanna?
Let's have Ryan do, and then Talena.
Yeah, I'll be happy to jump in there. One of the things that's really surprised me, and I'll just reemphasize, I'm an elementary school principal, and when we started this, it was really a very outward focused initiative in trying to really put books in the homes of our families that might have barriers to actually having them themselves. And so it was very much about serving this need that we saw kind of developing with some of the small populations in our community. And we certainly have seen some very big successes with that. But some of the surprises have actually come from the people that have fallen in love with that Little Free Library that I did not expect or anticipate. And then a couple of other surprises have really been the way that my students, the students that attend school here, have really learned and rallied around this idea of that becoming something that they take care of, right? So the stewardship doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to my, to my librarians or some of my community school coordinators. It really has belonged to the children. And we have leadership groups that have really taken it upon themselves to work with the maintenance and the upkeep and the filling and the replenishing of books, and really the promotion and excitement that's driven around that has been really fun. And it's also really brought together this really fun, and this has been maybe the biggest surprise. I only thought about children being served in that Little Free Library. We teach a couple of adult ESL classes on our campus, and we have families that are learning English with us that are non-native English speakers. And so they actually, after every single one of those sessions, will find adults rummaging through the Little Free Library to find text that they can take home in English and practice. And then they replace that sometimes with texts from their native languages, which I think is just so cool to go through and look and find books that are in Burmese or in Spanish. And it's just a really, really fun thing to experience.
Oh, that's terrific. I love that, the exchange and what happens with adults as well. And picture books, graphic novels are also ways for adult literacy to take place and to thrive. So that's great. Talena, how about you? Any surprises from being a steward?
I think I have to echo Ryan. I didn't know in the beginning. Let me say this first. My first surprise was opposition. My first surprise was people being afraid of having little free libraries in the neighborhood. People said weird things that I thought, why would you even think of that? People are gonna hide drugs in there. People are gonna put trash in it. People are gonna, you know, and it was love, right? It was love that they were afraid for me. They didn't want me to be disappointed. And so they were like, don't do this thing that hasn't been done before. So that was the first surprise. And then second surprise was the opposite reaction in the community. I know it would work, but I thought it would be a struggle. Remember, I said in 3 years, we'll probably get to that number. But the great, beautiful surprise has been support from every kind of organization, politicians, small groups, big groups, and it's a beautiful, wonderful surprise that I continue to welcome. And now whenever someone is wanting to get rid of the books that they really wanted to get rid of but couldn't bring themselves to throw away, I get that call or email. So that's nice.
And it does make a difference when you continue to share and talk about your Little Free Libraries in circles, other circles. So that is a great way to spread that, information and the publicity. And I think, like you said, it's very much like a campaign. Our next question is for Misty first and Talena, since you have multiple ones. And this is a big one for everybody always, is how do you keep your library stocked? Misty, you've got a number of them. You're about to have some more. Tell me, what are the ways in which you try to keep books coming in, and what do you tap into in order to bring books in?
So I'm lucky that I have great resources available through Nextdoor and Facebook. And I also make a concerted effort to write directly to publishers and request books. And I've gotten boxes and boxes of support from many publishers. I think the big thing is sometimes people just don't know how much you go through. And I recently posted on Facebook saying, if you're doing any spring cleaning, I am happy to drive over and pick up any books that you're willing to donate. And the lady says, well, I don't have very many. I might have 20. And I said, I go through hundreds in a month. Like I can use them. So I think people just don't know, like they think, oh, my donation isn't good enough, or it's too small, or even if you get one book from one person, that makes a huge difference if someone takes it.
So the follow up on that just for a minute is just contacting publishers. Now, you write to them. Are there ways in which you do that? Sometimes people try to contact individual authors, and some are generous, but there are a number of authors who I spoke to, particularly the ones who are the diverse authors. They only have a few books, and so it's hard to tap into that well or have them donate books. But it is sometimes a great opportunity. Do you write to them? Do you email them? And
I have been lucky enough to receive donations from various individuals in my community, monetary donations, and I use the monetary donations to buy sort of the authors that you might not necessarily be able to reach out and request from. I do, if there's an author that my kids really like a book, or a series of books, and I'm not getting anywhere with the publisher, I might reach out to the author on Instagram for suggestions. But I try to be aware that it's their livelihood.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I take the time to research the books that I like, and I kind of am familiar with the different communities I serve and what they enjoy reading, and I find the particular books that might fit that need, and I reach out to those particular publishers, and I take the time to write individual letters. You can get good contacts if you check publishers, sort of their PR sort of marketing area, I think, is where I've had the best response. So that would be my suggestion.
Great. And Talena, how about you? How do you keep your various libraries stocked?
First of all, we get a lot of donations from the surrounding cities from, I'm a teacher, so there are teachers who are just teachers collect books. I'm a language arts teacher, so they donate their books, families, just people. They started calling me the book lady, or give it to the book lady, which I'm pushing back on that. It sounds older than I am. And so that's primarily the way, but we made a great connection with the Patterson Public Library, who has vowed that we will never run out of books. And so I appreciate them. We have, that's one of the surprises. We have a very, very generous community. One of the best ways, I think, because I'm a writer and have writer community, several articles have been written in our newspapers about our free libraries, and that broadens our audience from outside of the neighborhood. And so people will call from very far away and say, I have a book donation for you, and they'll come and drop off boxes and boxes and boxes of books. I actually, right now, I'm not even accepting books. We have a lot.
Yeah. So thank you. There are different ways, of course, if you have book festivals in your town. Public libraries are one thing you do is you support the public library by letting people know about it and making sure that people know that they can get their library card, but they also have friends of the library, other ways in which they can share books with you. The next question is about maintenance. What kind of maintenance do you do to keep your libraries in good condition? Ryan, Talena, this one's for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna give another shout out to the students of Jinx East Elementary. So once we kind of launched and started promoting and talking about our Little Free Library, we quickly identified Little Free Librarians that actually became sort of the ad hoc groups of students. We have rotating groups of students that really spend time, typically 2 times a week. They'll work with we'll have a staff member that'll go and go to the Little Free Library together, and they just make sure that the books are front facing or that they're displayed well and tidy. If there's any trash, or sometimes we get notes, people will leave little notes to us in there, and they'll take those out and make sure that trash is disposed of, and that any of the notes get passed on so that we can all kind of relish in the fun that is the messages that sometimes get left in the Little Free Library. And they've also done some really great, it's really fun when students have these ideas. They've had some ideas about just painting and changing the look and style of our Little Free Library. So we went through a second iteration with some student input. We had a little group of students that got together with a plan, and they put together an entire plan themselves. They got on and looked at dollhouse furniture to find little window treatments for the little, it was really so fun to see, 2nd, 3rd grade students putting together kind of a little mini business plan for what they wanted to do to the Little Free Library. And of course, I grabbed my maintenance employees and I said, hey, fellas, we're doing this. let's do some shopping and get this thing done. And so it's been really fun to see them again take ownership of that.
And a great way is partnering with local junior and high school students and service groups. This is a great service activity. So that's one of the things that we love to do. Talena, how about you? What kind of maintenance do you try to do in your community?
Our libraries are in the city parks.
Okay.
So what we did was, our goal is to get one in every city park. In Patterson, we have 46 parks, and every once in a while, somebody dedicates a new park, which is good, but it kind of makes our numbers change and our goals shift when that happens. So what I did was partner with the Clean Communities, which is a part of our Department of Public Works. And they have a Adopt a Park program. And so what I did was encourage people to adopt parks. And when those people adopt the park, then they are qualified to have a library in their park. And then I get some support in maintaining the library and the area around that space. And so that, much like the elementary school, when you have stakeholders, that's really important. Obviously, I can't go around driving around 46 libraries, you know, and have a full-time job. That won't work. But when we put in the community members working on them, that works out better. And there's more we can do with that number of libraries. You can imagine, like, sometimes things will happen, and we need to do a different level of maintenance. Like, it's one thing to put books in there, but it's another thing to replace a glass or something like that.
Yeah, we use some of the local city folks do that. Another thing that I noticed was that a number of stewards will actually say, here, I found this one, it needs maintenance. There's a photographer in the DC area who's been taking photos and identifying some that have needed some extra care. And then other stewards have actually gone onto his Instagram page and said, where is that? Let me go ahead and help out. So that's, I think the citizen action is always really nice, but also some of the service groups, local college students, college groups, that's also an avenue. One of the areas that people are have been asking about in both Facebook group and elsewhere is, how do you deal with vandalism? How do you try to prevent it? What do you do when it happens? This is from Misty and Talena. So Misty, let's have, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, first of all, it's a very sad thing.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking thing if a library gets vandalized. My first question is, like, why would you even, like, what are you thinking about? Why would you do that? So it's very sad. And because I was in a very sad place, you know, when that happened to our library. Keep in mind, I'm in an urban setting and I'm putting them in the city parks, and some of those city parks we were recapturing from dealers and addicts and etc. And we were trying to make this now a family space rather than a space for those kinds of things. And so we were in a bit of a, it wasn't really about the library, it's about this community struggle for this particular space. We won, by the way. Yeah. But before we won, you know, the library was vandalized, and it was really heartbreaking to have that happen. And my partner said to me, you know, there is no builder who doesn't have a repair team. Even Maytag has a repair team. And that really changed my perspective about, things break. We have to have a repair team. It's just a matter of fact. The washing machine breaks down, the car breaks down, like anything you build can have a problem, right? And so that really changed my mind. And so our latest design is with vandals in mind. We have a very long piano hinge. We have the thickest, like shatterproof glass, Pyrex or whatever it's called, that goes on the front. It has a magnetic door, because sometimes something that looks like vandalism is not, is weather, right? Yeah. Or is that the door was hanging open and the wind was blowing a lot, and so that pulls the door off. So that piano hinge and the magnetic door and the thicker glass and the, you know, how far does a young person have to reach up, you know, those kinds of things. So the new design keeps those kinds of things in mind. And the library itself is, I talk with my hands, you notice, and I need them for this moment. The library itself is, the back is against the post versus on the pedestal. And so that helps with sturdiness. Yeah. And so one of the ways we work with vandalism is to change our minds, right? And the second way is to improve the design for the area that library is in.
And Missy, I'll go to you. One thing I did want to point out is one of our wonderful board members, Kenneth Braswell, and with Fathers Inc., he has a lot of them in a number of different places, and he has a group of kind of Little Free Library ambassadors who go and regularly check. And so like you in various communities, they're there to kind of be the associate steward, which is really, really nice. Misty, how about you? Are there things that you try to do for yours, and how do you keep things going? And how do you try to help prevent and deal with or prevent any vandalism that occurs with you?
I agree with so much of what Talena said. And also just being an active member in the Steward Facebook group has given me sort of a different perspective of what I consider to be vandalism.
Yeah.
So yes, I've changed how I think about it and things I provide, and so how I prevent it and handle it is sort of tied together. So logistically, we have we place the libraries in higher traffic areas. My original library, we're in between an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. So it's like a walking route.
One thing, Misty, we're having trouble hearing you. Maybe get a little closer to your microphone.
Okay, I'll try to get closer.
There you
So
go.
we place them in higher traffic areas. So my original library is on the walking route for various age groups: middle school, elementary school, and high school. We have, what are they called? Sensor lights that turn on at night if somebody's walking by, sort of, so it like alerts somebody that somebody's there.
Okay.
I also make a concerted effort to reach out to the neighbors and get them involved, because it's not just mine. And I think when we have various neighbors who are like, I saw somebody at the library and they watch out their windows, or, you know, they walk by and they straighten the books, and, you know, they're wary of it. I think that helps tremendously. Not everybody has that. Not all communities are super connected, and I get that. But if you can, make an effort. And the other thing is, I don't leave pens, markers, sharpened pencils, I don't leave the tools there for individuals who are interested in shenanigans to contribute to the vandalism.
Oh, to vandal.
We had left some temporary tattoos in our very first library, and some kids thought that they would decorate the library with all the tattoos. And that was hard to clean up. So I just try to think about, if I were a kid and, you know, what would I want to get in trouble with? So we just try to make it not as appealing, if that makes
mischief
sense.
Managed, right? Oh, that's great. Thank you both. Those are really good suggestions. And you'll see when you join, if you haven't been part of the Little Free Library Stewards page, those are great resources for all sorts of tips and suggestions and photos and ways in which people take care of, engage, promote Little Free Library. There are Little Free Libraries and others.
Can I mention?
Go ahead.
Yeah, when you make your library, it doesn't hurt to also keep in mind or keep your eye out for deals on the supplies that you used to make your library, because if you want to replace the door if it gets broken, or knobs or things like that, it never ever hurts to have extra on hand.
Another thing is, you know, when I did a demonstration at a community fair, a farmer's market, our local Ace Hardware franchisor, she was fabulous. She got her staff involved, and they helped me build one right on site and showed and demonstrated. But they had done so many for local folks in the Petworth neighborhood, that all of their staff were experts. So if anybody wanted to make one, they just went to Annie's Hardware and got all the tips. They had special deals on the wood or the paint. They knew what paint to use. So think about your local Ace Hardware or hardware store that's a franchisee, because they really, this is the kind of stuff that they love. So the next question is also one that comes up often in the Facebook group and other places, and that is, very often there are people who will go through and rummage through the Little Free Libraries and take a bunch for resale. And so Misty and Ryan, why don't I have you talk, Misty, you first, and then Ryan, I'll have you follow up with taking books, but specifically for resale, and how do you deal with that?
Oh, yes, it has happened. I actually had a nice gentleman who lives in, I think it was Washington State, reach out, and he said he bought a book off Amazon used, and it had my always free, never for sale stamp all over it.
Huh.
And he found me with my name, my library name. So I make an effort to, first of all, I don't know, theft is a very loaded word. So I make an effort to, if a book is newer or donated by a publisher, because I don't want my publishers to think that those books are then getting out into the world to compete with their sales. I mark off the scan code, ISBN, I'm not sure what others call it, on the cover with a Sharpie or a black marker, permanent black marker. I stamp all over the book, inside covers, places where they wouldn't necessarily tear out a page. So I make an effort to mark it clearly. But I also, in my mind, I have to remember, I can't stop people choosing to do that. So I just, constantly have more stock. And again, just making sure my neighbors are aware and we just watch each other. And if, a lot of books leave, I just replace them.
Yeah. So two suggestions the really good suggestions that I saw on the Facebook group. One is when you're blacking out the barcode, one of the stewards said that you should black it out vertically, because scanners can still scan that code if you just black it out horizontally. So that's one tip from somebody. Another person was just in the resale end of things. They just alerted some of the used bookstores and said, look, this is something that's happening, keep your eye out. But another response to that too is that there are stewards who said, well, maybe that was also a way for them to gain some income. So I think we also have to be mindful and sensitive to that, because some people, they have to find additional sources of income. And so some people are making that point as well. I think that it's a tricky situation, but I think we can be mindful of our community. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, so fortunately, we've not had problems with people taking books to resale, but one of the things that we really did have to wrestle with is we did have, right from the beginning of the launch of our Little Free Library, we had some families that were coming and really just taking a disproportionate amount of books, and sometimes taking the majority of the books, from the Little Free Library and taking them home with them. And we really wrestled with how we wanted to, what language we want to use and how we wanted to address that with those families and those community members that were doing that. And it reminds me so much of the last couple of comments that have been made with the last question, and even with this one now, it really forced us to think about our paradigms, right? This idea of how we saw that event. And so I love that Misty made the comment that theft is a loaded word, right? That we've already kind of made an assumption about what's happening here just by what we're calling it.
Right.
And so I think what it really started us doing is talking about why we began this Little Free Library to begin with. And it was to increase the access of books that belong in the home and didn't belong to anyone else, right? We didn't intend for those books to be coming back unless they were being swapped out for other books. And we have families that have books that are in their homes that are being checked out from our school libraries or from other places, but they didn't belong to them. And as an educator, one of the things that I've spent a lot of time learning is how the brain works. And one of the things that we've learned about with some of our families that are under-resourced or might be in poverty, it changes the way the brain works. And so if you come from a background that's under-resourced and you find avenues to access a resource that was not previously available to you, it's very natural for people to really just dive in and try and take as much of that resource as it's available to them in that moment. And so we started to think about, if our response to someone who's not had access to books to keep in their home is stop doing that, we perpetuate that mindset. There's never going to be enough for me, or I'm not going to have resources available to go and have these books. And so we said, this is actually a moment for us to celebrate. Let those families take as many books as they need or feel like they need. We'll replenish the books. And over time, what we noticed is those families would continue to come back, but not take as many because they knew that there would be more the next time. And so for us, that was a really important paradigm, because we initially were worried about it, and we felt like we needed to address it in a way that probably would have shamed or maybe, I guess, prevented those families from going back to get books again, which is not at all what we want. I don't think anyone starts a Little Free Library out of a lack of generosity, right? We're in this business because we want to create access to families in our community around these stories and books that we love so much.
And I think that that's a really, really good point, Ryan. And I think, and I'll go to you, Talena, next, because I think this is why Little Free Libraries are about sharing. And it is, as you to expand upon that, it's about inclusivity, not exclusivity. Those books aren't exclusive to a community that seems to have the access to get them. And so I think that we should really be mindful in how do we also make sure that those communities, which may be near us, which may be part of us, which may be there, who are struggling with access, how do we help those communities rather than keep them out or make judgments or have language that may turn them off the desire to read, the desire to have books, the desire to share them or spread them around. That's important, and that's really the impetus behind what we do. Talena, I know that you would have things to say about this, because this is always a tipping point. Access to books is really critical in our society and in also understanding one another. So go ahead, Talena. I could talk forever about this, but it is near and dear to the Little Free Library's heart as well, about this inclusivity rather than exclusivity, and about language choice and loaded terms, and about our tremendous care in which we characterize things. So go ahead, Talena. I'm sorry, I go on.
Well, thank you for that question. You're right. I often am known to say that consistently we are in the battle for the minds of the people. So when you change a person's mind, and me too, like when I wanted to change my mind about whether or not we needed to do repairs, that changes my whole energy about how I'm going to be able to approach a situation. And I think that it's important for us to make books accessible, because what we do know as educators is that being literate changes the trajectory, not for just one person, but for their whole family and perhaps for generations. Yeah. That's a really important thing to do, to change the trajectory for a whole generation, many generations to come. And so how do we consciously do a thing like that? One is simply access. And I appreciate Ryan for saying, well, we're not going to blame anybody for coming here to get some books. There are places, and I never use theft, right? Let me say this. There are books in my life that I'm not going to share. They're in my house. Nobody's, you can't borrow it. It's my book. I've already read it, and perhaps more than once, but it's mine. It's sentimental, right? And I want people to have an experience like that. Yeah. And I tell them, if you find something in the Little Free Library that you must have, keep it. Yeah. Bring back something different. You don't have to bring back the same one. And I also know that there are people who in our community have very expensive sneakers. They have iPhones. They have earrings. They have all kinds of stuff, toys, video games, PlayStations. No books. Yeah. How do we change that? It's not, they don't buy those things for themselves. So whoever is providing for their lives is also not providing books. Why, right? It's a cultural kind of dynamic that people will go to their internet source on their phones to be entertained. This is what we're doing a lot of times when we're reading, right? We're reading some of those books to entertain ourselves. We like going into these fantastical places. Sometimes we're going there to learn things, and every time we're enriching our mind, no matter what it is that we're doing, right? As a language arts teacher, we're teaching them what no matter what the words are or what the story is, we find a way to hit all those standards, right? The point is that if you don't have that at your fingertips, how can you use it? So I never have ever considered anybody taking a book out of the Little Free Library as a theft. That's not a word that we use. I understand my population. I understand that the whole point is to get books at a person's fingertips. I know that we're trying to provide a place that is a word we used offline as a desert. We have a bit of a book desert. And the great thing about this community is that there are so many people willing to fill in the spaces for those who have not. So we have a great puzzle in that there are people with in this case, books, have a surplus of books, and then there are people who have none. And when we get that kind of milled out, then, maybe we won't need Little Free Libraries. Then it'll be more like a pleasure versus a real need. In my community, I believe it is fulfilling a need.
Yeah. And it may take there may be that one book out there that then flips a switch and becomes magical to someone who looked past all the other ones, but then all of a sudden a book, a story, something resonated, something spoke to the young person or the person whose family member brought it home. I think that is it becomes a treasure and a pleasure. I do also want to give a shout out to all the Little Free Library stewards out there who do what they call book bombing. They send their booklet out. They talk to people about the books. They go on trips and they have armloads and carloads and pass a Little Free Library that needs a few more books, needs a little extra love, or and then the issue of diverse books as well. That's why we created Read in Color, that the finding stories that reach communities, or the windows, mirrors, and sliding glass door impetus behind that. It is exactly that, book bombing and book sharing and a lot of book love. So I think that's really great. So we have a few more questions. Well, we could go on forever because I love this. What's the one thing you wish you knew when you first started your Little Free Library? This is for Misty and Ryan this time.
Go ahead,
Misty, Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'll jump in first. So a thing that happens to me often as a principal, I will come in from a busy day of, playing on the playground with kids. I have the best job, guys. But I'll come in from, a busy time at recess, or come in from, spending some time in a classroom, and I'll have a handful of messages or phone calls. And sometimes they're from community members that don't have children with us. And those almost are always scary because it's usually someone who lives in a neighborhood across the street that's mad at where the bus parks every morning, or about the traffic that's, kind of ruining their day. And so I have to have sometimes these challenging conversations with people who might be. And so I had a message one day from someone who was, it said that was not a parent, but wanted to talk with me about an issue. And so I make this phone call, and I'm not sure exactly what to expect. And it was this wonderful, wonderful woman who was a grandmother that lived right across the street, and was telling me all about how every weekend she would bring her grandchildren to play on our playgrounds and get books out of our Little Free Library. And what I found out is there were all of these people that I had no idea were coming onto our school campus, that were not a part of our school community in the typical sense, that were actually finding ways to access that Little Free Library and share stories and share books. And I did not anticipate that. I was only thinking about, really the families of Jinx East Elementary, my school, when this happened. So that was really exciting. It's something that I did not expect. And I wish I'd known that there was going to be an opportunity to really grow our community with this Little Free Library when we started it.
Great. Misty, how about you?
You're muted.
myself in.
yeah.
I wish I would have known how much I would enjoy it. I've made so many connections. I just wish I would have started it sooner. My neighborhood is closer. I've made friends through stewardship, both in person and online. Speaking of book bombing, a couple of book bombers from Washington State are coming all the way to Utah, and I get to hang out with them and go book bomb. Dan and Trina, I'm so excited to see them come. We've started a exchange group for stewards where we exchange the books we love, items for our libraries, just all through Facebook, just all these connections. Just it makes for a happier me and a richer life for sure.
Oh, that's great. One question, well, and I'll get to your, well, actually do this one, and then I've got a follow-up question for somebody. Well, I think, Ryan, you had your favorite story with the grandmother. Misty and Talena, do you have a favorite story about your Little Free Library? And actually, Misty, I want to talk to you, have you tell one about your little cool mobile Little Free Library. It's so cool looking. How many miles do you log?
I don't have any like good ones yet. I've had a lot of people like slam on their brakes in their car, like and I'm like, oh man, please don't cause a car accident. My personal favorite story. So I keep a guest book in my first library. And that's also a tough one. They come and go. They definitely do. There was a message written by a young woman named Caitlin, and she had found my library featured in a book. And I don't know the author of this book. I don't know why my library was like, it was a whole page of Little Free Libraries, like 10 of them, I think. Okay. The author is Jane Mount. The book is called Bibliophile. And this girl in California found my library and came all the way to Salt Lake City and visited my library and my local bookstore, the King's English. And it just blows my mind that, again, the connections, like somebody makes a concerted, they like, oh, look, there's a library. I really like it. I'm going to go visit it. And then they visit and they take a book, leave a book. They write a message. It's just, I mean, it's just an amazing thing to make an imprint, I guess, even long distance.
That's a great story.
I have another question. This is a follow-up question. What if you're really challenged and you don't get a lot of traffic to your Little Free Library? What's your suggestions for promoting it and sharing, letting people know about your Little Free Library? Where can you start kind of tickling the community, getting the word out? If you don't get a lot of traffic to it, are there things that you can do? If somebody likes to do chalk arrows or have the local paper do a little story, which would be really cool. Are there other tips that any of you have to kind of promote your Little Free Library?
Well, we're talking about that in the chat right now, about what can you do. So one of the first things I did when we had the first 3 libraries up was a Give a Mouse a Cookie event. We went crazy with this social media, soft flyers and things like that. We invited people to come read. That book is available in English and in Spanish and likely some other languages. So we got a person to come read it in Spanish and a person to come read it in English. In the book, there's cookies. And so we had cookies and we had, a variety of types of milk for lactose awareness. And we had somebody donate cookies for us, right? So we had these amazing, incredible chocolate chip cookies that I don't even know where to buy, but that's another way that person is now helping us to promote because he's donating cookies. The readers are helping to promote because they're going to be there reading. We had the mouse draws pictures. So we had pictures being drawn. Like
Yep.
There's a youth group that went around and talked to everyone in the neighborhood by knocking on the door and giving out the hard flyers. That was their way of doing some community service at that time. And so, and it really didn't cost anything because we just, most everything was donated. It cost some time, you know. People really want to support those kinds of things. So then remember we talked about earlier, having stakeholders. Those people become stakeholders, and now they want to support the event. They know the library is there. It's not your library anymore, which is the goal. The goal is to make it not yours. The goal is to make it belong to the community. And that part really helps a lot. Then what happens is other organizations start throwing events, especially those people who are, remember I said they adopted the park and therefore the library. So now they're having books and breakfast. They're literally out there in the park with a griddle making pancakes, and the kids line up to read out loud. The first time we thought we were coming to read to the kids, but then we got to sit back and all these kids were just reading to us, which was really, really unexpected and very nice. And so that's a low cost way to do two things at once: get some awareness about your library and to build stakeholders in both your event and the Little Free Library that eventually becomes the community.
So, and you could do like a passport, you know, visiting different ones, make a destination, make your Little Free Library destination or scavenger hunt. I have a little nod to ask Talena your favorite Little Free Library story, not to forget to ask your favorite Little Free Library story. So why don't you tell us yours?
I don't really know. I don't really have a really favorite story, but I have one that's really memorable.
Okay, that's good.
So there's a woman, remember we were struggling to gain this park back from a different audience, right? And so patron, however you will say. And there was a woman who used to hang out in the park she had a heroin addiction. And so on this day when I arrived at the park to fill the library, she like sprung into action and she wanted to like pick up things that she saw on the ground and, you know, help with the library. There was nothing even down, but you know, she found stuff to pick up and she started saying, I wish I had a broom. And so I said, do you want to help me fill the library? And so there was a series that I was putting in, and I had put, you know, 1, 2, and 3, and now I was up to 11, 12, 13. And when she put the books in the library, she said, oh, look at that. 11, 12, 13. That's how old my daughters were. I'm gonna cry. When I left, because I knew I had this problem. And she left the house and started being on the streets. When she saw 11, 12, 13, she was reminded of those girls. So it can't be a favorite story, but it's definitely a memorable story because she had found some purpose in that time. And whenever I went there, she was there like taking care of this place that reminded her of her daughters. You know, and so it was a really very interesting connection that you cannot plan. You cannot.
You never know where that connection can come from. Thank you so much. That makes so much, Talena. It's a beautiful.
Sorry, Misty. I feel like that too. I feel like it.
That I have no words. It's really something. And those are the moments that make this meaningful. You never know. They come out from every sort of place or person, and that was a reach to someone really, really special. I know we're Shelby, I think we're over time. You guys are just so wonderful. We have lots of great stories on the Facebook page and in our blog, and it means so much to be part of this universe. You give so much. We see so much care, and Little Free Library stewards have powerful stories, and you have a place. It's, I think Todd, Blade Hubble used to say, you know, like it is the epitome of humanity. Look to the helpers, he used to say, and that is where all of you are. And you just, oh, here's a question. Do you ever put magazines in your Little Free Library? I know some people don't. I don't know if any of you do. And shall we give me a shout out if we have to wrap this up, because I want you to be able to get to the next session of this. Some people do magazines and DVDs. Okay.
I have people put magazines in ours, but I don't like them to put in textbooks.
Yeah,
I don't like textbooks because I feel like textbooks needs instructors and they take up a lot of space, and I'd rather there be stories. And so I tell people, don't bring us textbooks.
Yeah.
But I see the Daily Bread in there, which is nice.
Yeah. I think people are doing activities. So, so somebody did ask how you handle the pandemic. I saw a lot of Little Free Libraries that added food or masks or other ways. And also in this era of the social justice and upheaval, there was really a role to play about, you know, a lot of intentional effort to reach the communities that you serve. So how did you all handle the pandemic? And I think after that, I think we might have to wrap up, but let's talk about the pandemic. How were you affected? Because I would love to hear about that.
Okay, so our Little Free Libraries are in parks, and the governor closed the parks.
Yeah.
And so we had definitely a freeze on being able to install. We had a freeze on being able to even go into the parks to access the libraries. And I thought that was the worst thing ever. But then I talked to the mayor, I'm on his cell phone, right? Like, listen, people have to be able to get to the libraries. They don't have to stay in there and play on the playground equipment, but just let them go in and get a book and leave. That, people need this kind of stuff. The governor opened some of the county parks, and then eventually we got to the place, like, we are actually in a worse pandemic phase than we were when we went into quarantine. If you think about it, right? It's worse now than it was at the beginning, but we know more. And so we know to encourage people to wipe off the surfaces, to use hand sanitizer and that kind of thing. And, it was hard at first, but I think we're saying during the pandemic, like it's over, it's not. We're still in the pandemic, and we're still encouraging people to use the wipes and hand sanitizer.
Yeah. Ryan, how about you? Because you have a school. So did you try to help maintain some of the use of the Little Free Library, or did it have to close down?
The only time there was about a 3-week period that we closed because our district had made the determination to close all of our public access to our playgrounds, which in turn close access to our Little Free Library. But honestly, outside of that, we've continued to make sure that it was stocked and available, even when school was not in session for a good portion of the end of the year last year and the beginning of this year. This year, we made sure that we had a plan to continue to refill, and it was used not as frequently as was when school was in session, but it was still used pretty widely, and that was important to us. In fact, there was in Oklahoma, there was kind of this halo effect that happened, especially last spring, when everyone was slowing down naturally because things were starting to shut down and people were working remotely. And then we had this really great string of spring weather. And so I remember several days being the only person at work, and the students weren't here, the staff weren't here, and I would come in and kind of do my typical business, and I would look outside and just see all these families playing outside in the playground and going to the Little Free Library. It was really kind of a special little memory for me. But we tried to keep things operating, although traffic did slow down quite a bit.
Yeah. According to Shelby, 30% of our stewards actually saw an increase in activity since the start of the pandemic, and Yeah, they really, really did serve a great purpose and filled a need. So that was really terrific. So I know we're well over. I just want to thank all of you, our wonderful guests. The Little Free Libraries, as you know, are the backbone of our neighborhood, our community, our network. And we would never have grown so quickly without the support and dedication of all the stewards worldwide. We will have the Little Free Library Unbound available on our YouTube page. Somebody's asking if the word cloud image can be available. I'm sure that they could. And I just want to say, if you've enjoyed this chapter, so thank you, all of my wonderful panelists. You were more than I can say, just moving and wonderful. And I hope to talk to you again sometime soon. So if you've enjoyed this chapter of Little Free Library Unbound, if you could consider a financial contribution to help us continue to offer these free events, donations to the nonprofit, also support our steward services and activities, which we can create so we can create more resources and opportunities. You can donate at littlefreelibrary.org/donate. And I'm going to turn it over to Shelby. Shelby will put it up on the slide. And Lexi, I just have a blast, and I'm sure that this won't be the last time we and stewards all gather again. So we hope you'll join us again next month for Chapter 5, and we're going to feature some of the incredible nominees for the 2021 Todd H. Bull Awards for Outstanding Achievement. This is our annual award given to stewards who are going above and beyond to improve book access, like Talena herself, who was an awardee, and build community. So you can register for Chapter 5 at the link on the screen right now. I'm sorry, Shelby, I just did your stuff. So I just want to thank you. It's always an honor to have this conversation.
Thank you so much, Anita. This was, again, another great one. And thank you to Ryan, Misty, and Talena, and all of our amazing stewards. You were not alone. I cried a couple times this month too. We're just so lucky that we get to do this work together. And, you know, those three were just three of a bunch of stewards we have doing amazing work like this and making a huge difference in their communities every day. We can't express enough how grateful we are for the stewards and everything they do. As Anita mentioned, next month we'll be talking about our 2021 Todd H. Bull Award nominees. If you know an amazing steward who should be considered for this award, you can submit your nomination at littlefreelibrary.org/Todd-Bull.awards, excuse me. Shelby shared a link, and you can find that form on our website under our programs section. And the nomination form closes on April 18th, and winners will be announced May 18th. So next month we will get to chat a little more with some more awesome stewards. If you haven't already, we encourage you to follow Little Free Library on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and LinkedIn, where you can learn more about our amazing stewards, our wonderful programs, and get more information about upcoming chapters of Little Free Library Unbound. Shelby's going to share those links in the chat so you can connect with us. We also have an e-newsletter that you can sign up for on our website, where we share steward stories and tips and all kinds of great stuff to let you know what we're working on. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, we couldn't do it without you. And to close out, I'm going to share a quick video that we have from Little Free Library staff and our board, just expressing our thanks and wishing you a really successful and wonderful happy National Volunteer Month. So I'm going to let that play, and then we'll close out for tonight. Thanks for sticking around.
Thank you, stewards, for all that you do on behalf of Little Free Library. By bringing access to books in your neighborhood and a pleasure and joy for reading, you're making such a difference.
Happy National Volunteer Week, stewards! Thank you for being part of the Little Free Library Network.
Hi, I'm Margaret Bernstein. I'm a board member of Little Free Library. And to our stewards, I just want to say thank you. We love you. I mean, we really love you. Thank you for sharing books all over the world.
Hi, Little Free Library Stewards. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, stewards.
Thank you for being a part of this. We really appreciate you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Artika Tyner, and I'm a proud board member of Little Free Libraries. And I just want to thank you. As stewards, I know that you are making a difference in our communities. One book at a time, one block at a time, we're planting those seeds of social change. So I want to thank you for promoting literacy and community building.
Hey, Little Free Library Stewards. Thank you so much for sharing books within your communities and also all around the world.
This is Sharon. Just wanted to say thanks to all of our amazing volunteer stewards at Little Free Library. Keep up the great work.
Hi, my name is Malcolm Person, and I've been on the Little Free Library board for about a year. And in fact, I serve now as the organization's treasurer. But the thing that brings me the greatest joy is watching the activities and successes of people like you. I really appreciate our volunteers, and I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for all that you do.
Hi, Little Free Library Stewards. My name is Melody, and I work in customer service. And I just wanted to say thank you for all you do.
Hey, all you fabulous Little Free Library Stewards. Thank you so much for all you do to bring people together and share books in your community. You're the best.
Hi, Greg Metzger here, Executive Director for Little Free Library. And I'd just like to give a great shout out to all of the wonderful volunteer stewards around the globe that help make our job all that much easier. We couldn't do it without your help and support. Thanks.
Hey LFL stewards, happy National Volunteer Month. Thanks so much for everything you do to increase book access and spread literacy in your communities.
Hi, my name is Elise Chambers and I'm on the board of directors for Little Free Libraries. I wanted to take a moment to say a huge thank you to you, each and every one of our amazing stewards who truly are the heartbeat of this organization. This is Minnie and Moo Save the Earth, which is the book that my 5-year-old brought home from one of our neighborhood Little Free Libraries a couple weeks ago, and which we have read not once, but usually twice or 3 times a day since then. That is how much joy this book brings him. That is the light and the love that you bring into this world when you tend your libraries. Thank you so much for making our world a brighter place. We love you. We appreciate you. Please let us know how we can support you. Thank you.